oil is a highly inelastic commodity, meaning a tiny, tiny move on one end in supply or demand can actually have outsized impacts on price. And it always has. It's not this time. And it's not just like, oh, there was this Gulf Arab crisis of 73 to 74. There was the 2022 crisis where people thought maybe 3 million barrels a day were going to be missing due to Russian sanctions on the Ukraine war. This is bigger than all of those, Marty, combined. And then some, right? And it's the most mysterious thing. So you hear like the chatter like, oh, the Strait could be open tomorrow. Everybody runs their analysis, and Goldman Sachs or the head of, Qatar's energy agency say the same thing. They're like, well, within 6 months, we think it'll be 70 to 80% recovered. Okay. Well, it used to be 25 million barrels a day. So 80% recovered is we're still missing 5 million barrels a day 6 months from now. There's nothing even remotely that scales to what we're talking about here at this point. And yet, really just total placidity and complete reliquefication of the U.S. stock market. Well, it's not just U.S. If you can see this South Korean stock market, even Germany's stock market just powered to all-time new highs last week, and Germany's just imploding at this point from a business standpoint. So there is just something going on here that just doesn't make sense. And I think you got it right, that beach ball is being held down. I think that everybody who's a professional beach ball holder cut their teeth on all these things like, I don't know, the dot-bomb crisis, the great financial crisis, long-term capital management. These are all like human contrived issues, and you can paper over them if need be. And I think they can do that. Oil's different, right? Oil's a molecule. Energy is the master resource. You can't just paper this over. It's not possible. So I think we're getting set up for the biggest of all possible rug pulls, sudden emergence of that beach ball, and then we're going to be facing actual rates of inflation that are going to be, I think, really terrifying, both for the market masters, who are the beach ball holder downers, but also for the rest of us. This could be a darker repeat of that double hump inflation of the 70s to 1980 era.
No, I forget who surfaced the chart, but that echo inflation of the 70s resurfaced a couple of weeks ago, and we're tracking pretty tightly to it now with the latest inflation prints. And that's the other thing, like CPI is notoriously underreporting actual real inflation. And when you get into the knock-on effects of the supply chain disruption, I mean, I had somebody who runs a fertilizer business on last week, and he's saying that John Deere, which will typically extend financing to farmers in the U.S., is not, because they're looking at fertilizer prices, looking at corn prices, and saying corn prices aren't high enough, fertilizer prices are too high. We can't finance your sort of your endeavor to go plant crops this season. And so talking about like lagging effects, that's what I worry about is this fall, particularly not only oil and gas, but it moves into food. And then you get real tough conversations at the dinner table about what are we going to do.
Well, this is such an important point, because again, now corn, its price is also set in the futures market. And again, I believe that all the big giants, conspire to keep the price of corn down because it serves their interests, right? And so the producers just get hammered all the time. I kind of hope that we get a producer rebellion. What if all the silver miners got together and said, sorry, quit your, or only make direct deals, with Chinese solar manufacturers or something like that. But corn today is trading at exactly the same price it did in 2008, right? Can you imagine if like Ford F-150s had a futures market and the market shrugged and said, sorry, Ford, you have to sell your F-150 trucks for $32,000, because that's what they were in 2008. Like Ford would go out of business, and that's happening. They are driving farmers out of business. And that sounds like a bug. It's kind of a feature if BlackRock's on the back end snapping up the farmland, right? So there's something going on here, but it's very clearly not capitalism, and it's not legitimate price discovery between willing consumers and producers. There's another, what Matt Taibbi called that blood-sucking squid. It's just like, it's bad. But, then you're right. You have that uncomfortable moment around the dinner table someday, like, wow, who knew that if we kept copper prices this low for 2 decades, we wouldn't have enough